Welcome to Taste of Life, an interactive travel series for the gourmet in us all. Today's Epicurean Odyssey is an invitation to sample the culture and cuisine of St. John, New Brunswick.
Paddy, when you die, will you lend me a fiddle? Oh, Paddy, if you don't, take a note to the devil, will you be so kind as to lend me a fiddle and I play it every day? Favor my shiny oh, diddle-lie-dum, diddle-lie-lo, diddle-lie-dum, diddle-lie-lo, diddle-lie-dum, diddle-lie-lo, diddle-lie, diddle-lie-o.
This Canadian maritime city taps the strength of two bodies of water, the mighty Bay of Fundy and the St. John River. The atmosphere in St. John is as dramatic as the fog that rolls in from the sea. It provides a backdrop for a community steeped in the history of its founding peoples.
In the last years of their lives, sharp as a tack and hold, as I was young. Sitting in the kitchen, these are the words he sung. So, Paddy, when you die, will you lend me a fiddle? Oh, Paddy, if you don't, take a note to the devil, will you be so kind as to lend me a fiddle and I play it every day? Favor my shiny oh, diddle-lie-dum, diddle-lie-lo, diddle-lie-dum, diddle-lie-lo, diddle-lie-dum, diddle-lie-lo, diddle-lie, diddle-lie, diddle-lie-oh.
The culture of the sea is embedded in every brick in the city and in every breath of maritime air. Come with us as we explore Old St. John with tourism's Daryl Michaud. We visit a bygone era of gracious living at one of St. John's grand historic manor homes, the Chateau Lawn Inn. There we talk with innkeeper Pat Gallagher about the fantasy of history and with executive chef Glenn White about the exquisite culinary realities that are part of the Chateau Lawn experience. Come with us to Canada's oldest covered market, where we get a mouth-watering cook's tour. And we learn about the roots of maritime cuisine from innkeepers and chefs Ross and Willa Mavis. Then we wash it all down with Moosehead beer. Brewmaster David McDonald shares with us the secret of a really good brew.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
All this and more when Taste of Life returns.
Canada's first newspaper, its first bank, North America's first police force. It's no wonder there are so many firsts here in Canada's oldest city. And from the moment of its birth 400 years ago, St. John has been something to talk about.
St. John got here because it's the mouth of a river and it's a natural harbor. It was named St. John, in fact, by Champlain when he came here in 1604, and he happened to arrive on St. John the Baptist Day. The visible history here is probably more loyalist than anything else. But you know, leading up to Confederation, and 50 years before Confederation, 150,000 Irish people came here as well. So there's a lot of Irish culture here too. And in fact, I think about 60% of the population can trace their roots back to Ireland.
The Gaelic heritage of St. John may be colorful and cherished, but the city's earlier loyalist roots are still strongly visible. British loyalists from New England and New York built the foundations of St. John with their ambition. The bricks and mortar remain, and so does their spirit, enough that St. John is still known as the Loyalist City. Loyalist City St. John may be, but it's got a charm and uniqueness that's all its own.
Welcome to 1867.
The people of St. John are proud of their city's ability to change with the times, joining the new Canadian Confederation in 1867, rebuilding after a disastrous fire 10 years later that destroyed nearly all the wooden buildings downtown. The history of St. John has taught its people to be adaptable and not to take life too seriously. In all of its incarnations, St. John has been a harbor city. The mouth of the St. John River meets the magnificent Bay of Fundy here.
The marine influence is definitely here. It's a port above all. In fact, in the early 1800s, it was probably, I think it was the 5th largest port in the world. A lot of shipping went on here.
So it's no wonder fortunes were made and destinies carved in the logging and shipbuilding industries around St. John. The city's maritime legacy and lifestyle are lovingly enshrined in museums. And even one of the city's landmark buildings reveals the link St. John has had with the sea. Under a roof built like the hull of a ship, the city market thrives. It survived the city's Great Fire to qualify now as the oldest in Canada. And amid the friendly bustle of merchants and shoppers, traces of the past remain. Even now, morning and night, the market clerk rings a bell to signal the opening and closing of commerce. We get a market tour from Executive Chef Glenn White.
We come here frequently. It's a great meeting place for people to bring their wares, their goods. A lot of farmers still bring their produce here. And most of the produce that comes into the city is settled here. So it's a great place for chefs and cooks to come down, take a look at what's coming into the city, what's new. We have a lot of traditional foods here. We also have a lot of new style foods here, which is exciting. So we can combine a little bit of the both.
Going to the market isn't just research for chefs. Chateau Lawn's house blend of coffee is made here, and ties to merchants ensure access to the freshest products available. Household cooks and well-known chefs often meet at the source for many of their inspirations.
The Maritimes reminded me, if I looked across all the provinces, of this wonderful patchwork quilt and the quilts that you see here. And you know, you can reach down in some corner of New Brunswick and see a thread and pull it, and something over in PEI or Nova Scotia will wiggle. That's how connected it is.
Next, cuisine inspired by the flavors of the Maritimes in the kitchens of the elegant Chateau Lawn Inn. We'll be right back after the break. The Chateau Lawn Inn is our fine dining choice in St. John, with Executive Chef Glenn White. The Chateau Lawn Inn is nestled in a neighborhood of palatial summer homes built by the last century's industrial tycoons. Staying there is a step back in time to period furnishings and an atmosphere of grace and elegance.
I think people tend to fantasize. You know, they can picture themselves, particularly coming down that stairway as a bride, for example. And whether there have been, I'd hate to think how many brides' pictures have been taken on our stairway out here. But I think people, you know, relive and fantasize these things. The reaction of people when they come in here is that you're coming into somebody's home. And I guess maybe that's what we want, is we want people to feel at home, to feel comfortable.
The Chateau Lawn Inn is known far and wide as a place for special occasions, but every dining experience there is a special occasion. Executive Chef Glenn White brings the best of two worlds to the kitchens at the Chateau Lawn Inn. Born in New Brunswick, he was raised on the flavors of the Maritimes. Then he trained in some of the finest professional kitchens in Toronto, and he's brought back a taste for international flair in fine cuisine.
The cuisine is rustic, but for my slant, I would like to take these rustic ingredients that we have here and imbibe them with a little bit more flavor. I trained in a city that is made up of neighborhoods, ethnic neighborhoods, so I have a lot of experience in different ingredients and different seasonings, and if I can take those seasonings from around the world, which we have easy access to now, and use them to enhance the local product that we have, I think we can do some good, exciting dishes. You should see a lot of color, you should see some height, and you should see lots of flavor. We try to do some texture with the food. We try to vary the color as much as we can, and we try to build it up from the bottom. And you should get a visual peak at some point in the plate and that should heighten your awareness of what you're about to have. And then the flavors, hopefully we've done enough work on the flavors that you'll achieve that through eating it.
Glen White's specialty dish for Taste of Life is bursting with flavor. It's a spicy beer-poached scallop and shrimp appetizer. For a free copy of this exclusive recipe, visit our website or call us toll-free.
Welcome to Chatelaine Inn's Kitchen. We're going to make today a spicy beer-poached scallop and shrimp appetizer. And to start the dish off, we're going to make a court bouillon with a Moosehead lager, which is a local beer produced here in St. John, New Brunswick. So we're going to start off with 2 pints of beer. And then we're going to start adding some flavorings to it. We'll put in some mustard seed, some crushed red peppers, a little bit of cumin. Cumin is nicely toasted first, and then it brings out the oils in it, and the flavor is much better. A little bit of cayenne pepper. About a clove of chopped crushed garlic. About a stalk of celery. And then we're going to add our seafood. We use fundy scallops. We'll do about 3 per portion. The object of the scallop is to take the muscle off, which doesn't cook too hard. This is coming up to a simmer. We'll include our scallops. We'll use some nice peeled and deveined shrimp. And we'll bring that up to a simmer. Let it cook through until the shrimp are pink and the scallops are nice and tender. Then we'll pull it off, leave it sit overnight in the refrigerator and chill. The sauce for our dish is a sweet yellow tomato coulis. Very simple. We will dice some sweet Californian tomatoes. We'll add a little bit of shallot. Add some spring water. I use spring water instead of tap water because it doesn't have the chlorine element in it, and the spring water is much fresher and sweeter. And you just add it into a pot, sweat it off, bring it up to a boil, cook the tomatoes through, puree them, and then you end up with a nice, clean, bright yellow sauce. Now, for the garnish on this dish, we're going to use a nice rhubarb chutney. The rhubarb we get fresh from our garden here. It also includes New Brunswick blueberries, which gives it a nice sense of sweetness. To start off, we're going to add some cider vinegar. Then we're going to add some flavorings. We'll start off with a touch of cinnamon, a little salt, some cayenne pepper, some mustard seed, some chopped garlic, a little ground ginger, some grated and chopped orange zest, and we'll put in a little onion, some nice diced red pepper. And what you'll need to do is bring this up to a boil, let it simmer or boil for about 15 minutes, thicken up a little bit, and then we can start adding our fruit. So now your chutney has come up to a boil, and it's reduced down quite a bit, and the flavors have been allowed to develop. So we're going to add our sugars, some brown sugar, some white sugar. And we'll add our fruit, nice fresh New Brunswick blueberries, and our rhubarb. You would allow that to cook down, reduce down some more, another 15-20 minutes, and that's basically your chutney. You end up with a nice, thick, rich chutney. Nice and sweet, nice and tart. It goes well with the scallops and the shrimp. Now comes the fun part. We're going to put our dish together. We're going to start with our nice, chilled yellow tomato coulis. A couple of ladles on the plate. We're going to flood the bottom of the plate. Just bring it to the edges. Nice bright color. We'll bring our chutney onto the plate. Just a simple mound. that we can lay our seafood. Our seafood has been sitting in the lager bouillon overnight, chilled in the refrigerator, so it's nice and cool. This is a great summer appetizer. Now for a garnish, we'll put a small phyllo can on the top of the plate, and we'll take a mixture of salad greens, fit these into the can. So, and we'll garnish the plate with a little julienne tomato. Give it some red to break the contrast, color contrast. Nice, light, and simple. Then we can put a simple vinaigrette over the greens. And there you have it. Spicy beer-poached fundy scallops and shrimp on a light tomato coulis. Enjoy.
When we come back, tapping into the secrets of a great brew. Stay with us. A people of the sea and Gaelic cheer, it seems natural St. John is also home to one of Canada's great beers. The Moosehead Breweries is the country's oldest independent brewery, still run by the 5th generation of the founding Olin family. The Olins came from England to help build Canada's railroad. They settled in Halifax, another major port city, also with a huge British naval presence. Ideal conditions for the first sales of beer from the family's backyard. And the first brewmaster of the Olin family was one of its matriarchs. A terrific idea, but one with risks. The family breweries were always in danger from fire and burnt down 5 times. But even with those setbacks and inevitable family tragedies, the brewery survived as the generations of Olins in Canada grew. Until one catastrophe nearly ended it all. The Great Halifax Harbor explosion near the end of the First World War destroyed the family brewery, along with much of the harbor and city, and even claimed a life in the family. But the Olins persevered and rebuilt once more, moving eventually to St. John in New Brunswick. The brewery grew, and shortly after the Second World War, the Olins adopted the name their beer is known by today, Moosehead. They set about building a reputation for Moosehead beer that kept the best of the past and paved the way for the future of the family-run company. Technological change at Moosehead hasn't changed the beer. Instead, it ensures a consistently excellent quality. Moosehead is still brewed right in St. John with fine local lake water, and it's bottled on the fastest line in the world.
Making beer is similar to cooking, and you start with raw materials, but then it's the challenge for the people who are involved to make sure that they do exactly the right things at the right time. And so there's an awful lot of pride in doing that, because what we want to do is we have an excellent beer, but we want to continue to make it the same way. And so you have to make sure that you use that judgment. It's the judgment of the brewers, it's the judgment of the kettlemen, it's the judgment of the people in the cellars moving the beer around, and that it all comes together in the flavor. It's a very intangible thing, but it's that confidence that they have because they've been here, some of them for generations, and know they're going to be here for future generations, that makes the beer special.
The magic is, I guess, is when you go back and you think about what you're dealing with when you're making your beer. You're dealing with yeast, malt, malted barley, hops, water, and other cereal grains to use to adjust the flavor. I guess the secret and the magic is combining these ingredients to make the flavor that you want, no matter what you have from a technical process. It's making sure that that flavor is there with the materials you're choosing to use. Of course, by varying the materials, you get different flavored products.
But most of them you can also only taste on a visit to the Maritimes.
We have the most popular brand around here. It's the Alpine Lager, 5%. The Alpine Lights, 4%, once again, alcohol and cut down the calories. And we have what we call our second most popular brand around here in the Maritimes is our Dry, 5.5%.
Nearly a dozen varieties of Moosehead beers are sold in the Maritimes and nowhere else. But the Mighty Moose, symbol of the great Canadian wilderness and a great Canadian beer, is fast gaining a foothold in places no moose has ever gone before. Moosehead now sells its signature beer in the U.S., Europe, and Asia.
There was birch rind, tart wine, cherry wine and turpentine, jowls and camelan says ginger beer and tea. A pig's feet, cat's meat, dumplings boiled up in a sheet, dandelion and crackers teeth with a killigrews for
There's an extraordinary good cheer here in St. John. It defies the dramatic fog and defines the friendly character of the people of the Maritimes. I'm Catherine Blythe for Taste of Life. Cheers.
There was birch rind, tart wine, cherry wine and turpentine, jowls and camelan says ginger beer and tea. A pig's feet, cat's meat, dumplings boiled up in a sheet, a dandelion and cracky's teeth and the killigrews for There was Bill Muse, Dan Hughes, Wilson Taft and Teddy Roos, while Bridie said in
Catherine Blythe's Wardrobe by Sonny Choi. The Lincoln Navigator is the official vehicle of Taste of Life. Visit us at tasteoflife.com or call us toll-free at 1-888-41-TASTE.
Boiled up in a sheet, a dandelion and crackers teeth with the killigrews for